everyone, I'm Helen and I'm gonna talk about I know there are so many Koreans nowadays planning to come to the UK, living in the UK, studying in the UK, but mainly I think so many students nowadays, they are planning to come to the UK as a working holiday visa. I think that visa name was YMS. So I'm gonna give you some advices and some tips and some recommendation today, because I came here in the very beginning as a working holiday visa as well. With a working holiday visa, I worked in Starbucks for 1.5 years and I worked in trading company as well. So I think there are a lot of things to share with you today. First, so many people ask me about living cost. I think this is most essential and most important thing to plan to come to the UK, I think. Basically, I lived in London and nowadays I live in Newcastle, so there are quite comparisons I can give you today. So firstly, accommodation. This is most basic thing you should prepare before you come to the UK or just after you arrived in the UK. It really depends where you live, but nowadays one double bedroom in London will cost about between 150 a week to 200 pounds a week, so it's not really cheap. But if you find like twin bedroom or like single room, it can be reduced into like 100 pounds a week. Still, you should pay more than 400 pounds per month. I think it's not really cheap, but if you think about how much you can earn in London, because their minimum wage is quite slightly higher than other cities, I think it's still affordable. But if you go to different cities other than London, like Manchester, Edinburgh, Newcastle, just one bedroom in shared house, you can pay between 70 pounds per week to 120. One of my friends who live in studio, which is in Korean we call one room, she pays like 500 pounds or 450 per month. So if you think about you should pay like twin bedroom or one single bedroom in shared house in London, you should pay 400 pounds per month at least. Living outside of London is quite cheaper and more affordable. But sometimes bill is not included, and if you come to the UK as working holiday visa, not student visa, you should pay council tax as well. So it's better you ask the landlord or like someone sub-rent to you before you move out how much you should pay for council tax and how much normally you pay for the bill a month or per week. And another thing you should consider is public transport cost. If you live in London, you can't avoid taking bus or metro, tube, because we call metro here. But it's quite expensive. When I sometimes go to London, or when I used to live in London, they're like 1 week bus fare or like 1 month tube fare. But normally, like my friend pays like 120 pounds per month as a public transport cost. So if you find accommodation near where you work, it's much easier because you can just walk or you can just take a bike. But be careful, there's so many thieves in London. When I had my bicycle was stolen just after 2 weeks later I bought. It was awful. So next thing is food. Of course, like it is really daily basic stuff because you can't starve. Well, I can say as long as you're not often eating out, food are so cheap, like much cheaper than South Korea, I think. I think you probably already heard about Tesco or Sainsbury, which is really basic supermarket. But there are much cheaper supermarkets called Asda or Morrison's or Lidl, which is German supermarket. So if you're lucky, you can get like lots of deals, buy one get one free or 2 for 3, something like that. So there are so many discounts every time, so you can get food really cheap price, and minimum wage is quite reasonable compared to South Korea, definitely, because when you think about you work an hour as a minimum wage, how many Starbucks coffee you can buy with your 1 hour minimum wage. In here, minimum wage nowadays is 7.2, I think. As I remember, Starbucks tall latte is 2.3, 2.4, like £2.40. So you can get at least 3 cups of latte in Starbucks. But in South Korea, I'm sure that you can get only 1 latte. So that's why they are way cheaper than South Korea. But eating out is quite expensive. So if you go out for dinner or like for lunch is quite cheap, like £5 you can cover. But if you go to dinner, you should pay at least £10, I think. It depends where you go, but I think it starts from £10. And most important thing, I know accommodation is important and food is important, but the most important thing is English, of course. But I think a lot of people kind of worry because they might heard a lot that British English is quite hard to understand and harder to change your accent or something, and they use some different words. But don't worry. What I want to say is, please don't worry. Be bold, be strong. Don't worry, because if you go to London, more than 50% of residents in London are not non-British. There are so many different various people living in London. You might find so many people who speak worse English than you. I think the only problem with Korean people is speaking, because in Korean education, listening, reading, writing is quite really alright. So lots of my friends, when they got first job, there was any problem reading emails, writing mails, but they couldn't really pick up the phone because they're so afraid they couldn't speak anything or they couldn't understand what the other was saying. And I was saying like totally even worse than you, I think. For example, when I made a sentence like, does she like it? I couldn't automatically speak does, because I know do, I know she, I know like, and I know it, but it was very hard to just speak does instead of do. If I see the sentence, do she like it? I know it's wrong, but when I speak it, it was really hard to just say does first. But what I want to say is, don't be too much ambitious. I know so many Koreans who are quite ambitious, so when they come to the UK the first time, they are really willing to hang around with British people, and it's impossible. I mean, it's possible if you're fluent and if you're exposed to British culture for a long time, so you exactly understand what they're talking about and can speak your opinion, then that's alright. But just normal people, I mean, spend more than 20 years in South Korea, it's really hard to hang around with British people from the beginning. You can do after 1 year or like sometimes 6 months later, but so many people just like so disappointed because they can't really hang around with British people. But I'd like to say, hanging around British people doesn't really help you to improve your English skills, because there will be no chance you can speak English as much as they speak. So what I want to recommend you is just hang around someone or a peer group who are in the same English level as you. So grab more chance that you speak English more than them and lead that conversation among them, so that it'll be chance to you jump to another level, like above level. So this is how I improved, and a lot of my friends improved their English after they came to the UK. And some of my friends asked me that, should I go to London or should I go other city, not London? But it really depends on you. But what I want to say is, if you go to London, getting a job will be much easier, making friends will be much easier. When you try to get a job in London, in normal customer service sector, like where non-skilled Korean people can apply for, normally all supervisor, manager, colleagues will be non-British. So they might have more empathy than just British, because they've been through the same thing as you're going through now when they first time came to the UK. So they might understand even you can speak like perfect English, and they might understand if you make some little bit mistake. But if you go to other than London, everywhere I applied for at the very beginning, all the managers, supervisor, and my colleagues were British, like white British. So they are really local. It was really hard to understand their accent at the very beginning. So if you never lived in some countries where English is their first language, I recommend you start your working holiday in London first, and then you can expand your area. So I hope all the recommendation and information would be helpful for you today. And if you have any other question other than that I spoke, or like if you want to know further details, please don't hesitate to ask me. Thank you for watching today and have a nice day. Bye!